Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets. Cause we know who we are, we know we top tier. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here and stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future but see profit here. Wait up, we gon' always win. Tell 'em I can't take no loss. My team hold no L's, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself.
All right, it's Friday. It's Friday. Another great week, man. Having a ton of fun doing this. And again, just driven by your positive feedback. Love it. Donate. Go to BrettBreaksThings.com. Hit the donate button. Believe me, you'll be helping. Come over to the stream. Come over to Brett Breaks Things on YouTube. Come over to the stream. Give us a call, 561-270-3844. If you want to talk about anything we talked about this week, including what we're going to talk about today, we've been putting it off. This particular topic we're going to open with. We're going to hit a few things, but we've been putting the opening topic off for a little while. Why have we been doing that? Because it's tariffs. And the taco nature of this dude has really stiff-armed us from digging it at any one point. I mean, his position, who he's attacking, how badly he's attacking them, tacoing on those attacks, it is global, overarching, spread far and wide, and nearly impossible to track. Even his own press secretary has no clue what's going on. You're going to hear her dodging it. She doesn't know. Nobody knows. The trade team doesn't know. Nobody knows when he's going to taco, when he's not, what he's serious about, what deadline's going to get pushed, like today, and what's not, right? I highlighted a little bit of a timeline, to show you the taco nature of what he's doing. But basically, as far as today goes, April 1st, reciprocal tariffs were scheduled to rise, some as high as 50% for Brazil, and we're going to get into why, Brazil specifically, for countries that had not reached trade agreements with the U.S. And I'm going to kind of go over just real quick some of the back and forth between some of our larger trade partners and smaller in terms of Trump trying to get these countries to come to the table and make a deal, to work something out where they can have a static trade percentage, a static tariff that will not fluctuate, will not be under threats of his current mood or something he read on social media or something or other, something else, something that will be set in stone, an agreement they can make. And a lot of countries, they all employ different tactics to try to, come to an agreement or not with Trump. But today was the day that they were all supposed to go into effect. But again, we almost lament going into it now because he tacoed again. There's been a 7-day reprieve for all countries who have not come to the table yet. Okay, Brazil's one of them. Mostly, we're talking about Mexico, who gets a 90-day to try to come to the table. Mexico and Canada have been two touchy negotiations, particularly. Pretty contentious in terms of Canada, and we're going to get to the details on that, okay? On February 13th, he ordered the investigation into trading partners. That's when this all started. Right after he took office, he investigated our business relationship with all of our trading partners. Who's screwing us is basically what he wanted to know. On April 2nd, Liberation Day, he declared a national emergency and imposed a 10% universal tariff on nearly all imports. That got the ball rolling, okay? But it had been going on. Okay. First, he started attacking Mexico and Canada, and he cited these countries weren't doing enough to mitigate the flow of drugs and migrants into the U.S. That's the reasoning he gave for beginning attacks on Mexico and Canada. That actually started in January 20th. February 3rd, he decided to pause that, started going back and forth. Then he hit China on February 4th. 10% tariffs on China, okay? He also, just around that time, February 10th, he revisited his old term's tariff war. In his first term, he had a 25% tariff on all foreign steel and aluminum. That restarted. that restarted. So it really started ramping up on the 27th. He said tariffs against Canada and Mexico and an additional 10% on China would go into effect on March 4th. He doubled down on social media, talking about the drugs pouring in from Mexico and Canada at unacceptable levels. Therefore, he needs to attack them with tariffs. This also went, along with the emergency aspect of what he was doing. He was doing this under emergency terms. So, he kind of doubled down on the emergency. Hey, it's an emergency level threat of drugs coming into the U.S. That's why I can do this now. That's why I can unilaterally do this. I can skirt Congress. I can do it unilaterally with executive orders because this is an emergency. This is an emergency. Okay, and on March 4th, as promised, on March 4th, the imports on Canada, Mexico, and China did take place. Canada responded at that time, and it started to ramp up with Canada. You remember the videos of Trudeau and other people talking about it. Not Trudeau, the new prime minister, can't remember his name at the time, started talking about it. And they imposed 25% tariffs on $155 billion of American goods. So it started to really, really ramp up. And right after that, he had a sit down with representatives from General Motors, Ford Motor, and Stellantis, and they yelled at him. So he paused the tariffs on cars specifically coming into the U.S. from Canada and Mexico for 1 month. So he can be pressured. I mean, you can pressure him into revealing his taco nature. That's actually, that's coming from inside the House. Those are the representatives from companies here saying, no, Trump. You're not going to do that to our business. Not right now, not yet. And he folded. In terms of those car companies. This went back and forth. You remember Rob Ford from Ontario put a 25% surcharge on electricity being provided to Michigan and other states. That pissed Trump off. He then threatened like 200% tariffs and it went back and forth. They backed off. It heated up. Some countries eventually started to fall into place. Some aspects of Trump's tariff war here started to come to fruition, to be honest with you, as he started to come to the table. Great Britain came to an agreement. He came to a tentative agreement with China. Vietnam came to a tentative agreement, but we'll talk about that more. Indonesia came to the table. Japan came to the table. The EU eventually came to the table, leading up to what we have now, which was this deadline for all of you countries that hadn't come to the table yet, or Trump has a particular axe to grind with you, Brazil. You've got a deadline. And the deadline came, and we're going to hit you with these unreasonable tariffs if you haven't made a deal with us. Well, now they've got a reprieve 7 more days and 90 days for Mexico to, get in line. He doesn't want that heat. He doesn't want that beef. He really doesn't. He's trying to be tough when it comes to, our North American trade partners, but he really doesn't want that beef, and he really wants Mexico to come to the table, something he can save face on but not ruin our trade relationship with them. Okay. And let's hear about it.
Just hours before President Trump's trade deadline was set to take effect today, he signed an executive order announcing sweeping new tariffs for dozens of countries, as well as formalizing the trade deal frameworks that his administration had already negotiated with a handful of nations. These new rates range from 10% to as high as 41%. And they're scheduled to take effect on August 7th, next week. In an exclusive phone interview with NBC News, Trump said that it was too late for other countries to avoid the higher tariffs, but then added the door will always be open to compelling offers, saying, quote, it doesn't mean that somebody doesn't come along in 4 weeks and say, we can make some kind of deal. When it comes to America's 3 largest trading partners, talks with China do continue with an August 12th deadline approaching, and Trump announced yesterday a 90-day extension for Mexico. However, Canada was hit with a 35% tariff on imports. That goes into effect today. The president addressed the higher rate just hours before he signed the order.
They have to pay a fair Right. It's all. It's very simple. They've been treating our country very badly for years. And look, we like Canada. I love Canada. I have so many friends in Canada. But they've been very poorly led. They've been very, very poorly led. And all we want is fairness for our country.
Yeah, all we want is fairness. That's all we want. We're going to get into his claims. We're going to get into his claims of the U.S. being screwed. All he wants is fairness. We'll get into the claims. We will. But he's talking about some came to a deal and some didn't. Some of the major players that came to deals and who didn't. EU, Japan, South Korea, UK, Vietnam, China, and Pakistan all have the frameworks for an agreement. All these major trade partners have come to the table in hopes of reduced tariffs, and it looks like that's what they're going to get. They played ball with the deal maker, and they're going to get the reduced tariffs. Basically, they're bending the knee on a global platform for the whole world to see, so Don can point at it and say, look, it's working. I'm making deals with these countries. They're scared of us. They're scared of me, my power, and they've come to the table. Who hasn't? Still, although negotiations are ongoing, they have stalled a bit with Canada, and its tariffs have gone from 25% to 35%. Mexico, as I mentioned, negotiations aren't done. They've got an extra 90 days. Smaller countries like New Zealand, Australia, and Norway, they all face elevated baseline country rates, not just them, other countries as well. I've got a list of some of the more egregious tariff percentages on some of the smaller nations we're talking about. I mean, he's hitting some of these smaller nations who don't have as much to negotiate with. He's hitting them hard. Algeria, 30%. Bosnia-Herzegovina, 30%. India, 25%. Iraq, 35%, because that's what they need. Laos, 40%. Myanmar, 40%. Why is Brazil at 50%? You see, he's all upset because he feels the Brazilian courts are being weaponized against his best bud over there, Bolsonaro. He's facing a bunch of charges, right? He's been ousted. That's Trump's guy. And he's saying, hey, their courts are weaponized against this great man. And as long as this continues, you're getting hit harder than anybody. He's weaponizing everything. That's what he does. It's what he does. I mean, is it even legal? Is it even legal? U.S. Court of International Trade ruled that tariffs beyond executive authority and these tariffs were beyond, his executive authority. Okay, U.S. Court of International Trade said this is beyond his authority, and they have ordered an injunction, and it is ongoing in the courts right now. You know, we'll get to it when a decision gets made, any progress in that case gets made. I promise you, we will get to that. We will get to that, but. He's claiming under the International Emergency Economics Power Act, the IEEPA, that he can impose these tariffs. The IEEPA, established in 1977, allows the president to regulate commerce during a declared national emergency involving unusual and extraordinary threats to the U.S. that originates in whole or substantial part from abroad. He's saying the amount we're getting screwed is an emergency amount. And there's an emergency amount of drugs and immigrants coming in from Canada and Mexico. This is declaring an overall emergency. I'm declaring the IEEPA, and I can do what I want. I can unilaterally just do this. That's what he's claiming. The fight is ongoing, okay? And the courts, the kind of courts have been split on this. Some courts would allow it, citing broad presidential discretion. Others warn that it blurs the line between national security and economic policy. He's cutting out Congress, and he's doing this unilaterally, and the courts are a little split on it.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
Thanks, Caroline. For the countries that don't have a deal yet, should we be looking at the April 2nd chart at all? Or is he negotiating and talking about having a set tariff rate, 10%, 20%?
Those discussions are taking place with the trade team today, and again, we'll provide further guidance with that executive order once it is signed. And the answer to that question will be in that executive order.
Eject. She doesn't know. Nobody knows. His team doesn't know. She doesn't know. Either she doesn't know at all, or she's being left in the dark. maybe she just has a problem keeping any of this straight in her own head, but she just hit the eject button on that. Hey, Carolyn, 10 or 20% on the larger trade? I don't know. We'll do a briefing later. Leave me alone. Who am I, the press secretary? Come on, get out of here with these questions. All right, so let's hear from what some of the economists are saying about this stuff.
When goods arrive in this country, imported goods arrive in this country, the tax or the tariff on those goods is paid by the importer, by the American company that imports those goods. That's the first so-called incidence of the tariff. Then you go down the chain. So it's importers, wholesalers, retailers, and standing at the end of that line is the American consumer. And just as we just heard from Jen, a lot of those people who voted for Trump did so because they believed he was going to lower prices. It's not a matter of when this consumer pass-through will occur. We are now seeing it. We're seeing it at the company level through lower profits, and that's corporations eating some of the tariff. But that can only go on for so long. They can only let their profit margins get squeezed for so long. They're already working through their buffers on their inventories where they front-loaded to try to avoid the tariffs. We are now unequivocally seeing tariffs pass through to consumer prices. We're seeing it in furniture, toys, we're seeing it in apparel, we're seeing it in electronics, and we're just going to see more of that as time goes forward.
You want a deeper dive? We've got some examples here. And I think this is interesting because this is where it directly affects you. But more importantly, this is where it affects Trump's voters, red voters, the ones who just simply go along with what Trump says, no matter how little they understand it. The ones that are like trying to talk to a brick wall when you try to explain to them what he did. The tariffs come in, the importers, the wholesalers, they pay it, then they pass it on to you. And if you think they pass it on to you exactly equivalent, you're crazy. If you think they're not going to find a way to eke out a profit in the face of the rising prices, you're crazy. And trying to explain this tariff dynamic to the hardcore zealots is like talking to a brick wall. Trump told me it's good. You're trying to explain to me it's bad. Get the bleep out of here. Where'd you get that? I didn't see that. I didn't hear that. Where's your information coming from? Do you understand it? Right? The regular, right, reciprocal answers that you get when you hit them with things that they clearly are out of their depth in. But he's talking about we're getting screwed, but who's really getting screwed? Let's hear about his trade war. Let's hear about it before I get into this.
Henrietta, starting with you, we know that prices are going to go up. At least we've had announcements from Adidas, Procter & Gamble, Walmart, Ralph Lauren, Mattel, Subaru, Nike. That's not a small amount of companies. Are more on the horizon?
Yes, more on the horizon. One of the biggest that I'm still waiting for right now is towards Canada, understanding what the tariffs are going to be there, if they're going to get that 90-day delay that Mexico just got. There are tariff hikes coming across the gamut of everything that you're buying for, vehicles, back to school, sneakers, anything you're using for camp and after school activities. All that stuff is on the chopping block and subject to what will be tomorrow as high as 40% tariffs on, sneakers and all the apparel you wear to spend your summer months.
Jared, the president continues to frame these tariffs as a charge on countries. So walk us through this. Help us understand by tomorrow when these tariffs take effect, if a product comes into the U.S. from another country, who's paying the bill?
The importer, the U.S. company that imports the good, they pay the bill, full stop. Now, after that, they try to pass that cost down the chain. So that means importers, then wholesalers, retailers, distributors, all the way down to the last person in that chain holding the bag, and that's the consumer. And the history of this, this is empirical work that we've done over the years, so this isn't that much of a guessing game, is that the bulk of the pass-through lands with the consumer. She's at the end of the chain. She's the one who's going to feel the most of this. And as you've suggested, we're already seeing signs of that.
We are already seeing signs of it, and I'm going to break it down right now. Where are we seeing signs of it? Now, this is just a handful of examples. There are many, many, many more examples across the board on products that have gone up in price already. already, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Tariff-induced consumer price hikes are projected at 2.9% before substitution. That means before they have had a chance to adjust their supply lines to ease the tariff hit, right? First, they get the tariff hit on stuff they've ordered. Then they try to adjust where they get their goods, where they get their parts to try to mitigate this. So before they get a chance to do that, 2.9% inflation on this, price hikes rather. After the shift, it is projected it'll be around a 1.7%. But some goods, it's way more than that already. Way more in some areas. Core inflation is expected to rise around 2.8% over the next year. And what has been hit? Here's just a few examples. We're about to go back to school, right? Kids are back in school next week, week after, I think next week here in Florida, right? HP Chromebook, which many high school students are required to have, okay? They're up $37. Now they're $248. Crayola, a Crayola 24-pack of crayons, up 50 cents. JanSport backpack, up $10. Up $10. Footwear and apparel, these are just a few examples. Keep that in mind. It is not isolated to these examples I'm giving you. Just trying to get you, acclimated right now to what you're going to be facing. Apparel and footwear. The Nike Air Force One that used to pride itself on being $90. That's how much our shoe costs. It's not going to go up. This is how much it costs. Part of their brand. Well, it went up. Up to $119. $119. Thanks, trade war with China. Thanks. A lot of this is due to this fluctuating, contentious war with China, who is more than willing to match us step for step. Levi's 501 original fit jeans, up $10. Now they're $80 per pair for jeans. For jeans. A woman's cardigan from H&M, just a woman's cardigan, China made, up 15%. Could be up 25% after this 7 days. How about toys? Lego Star Wars Millennium Falcon, up $15. Barbie Dreamhouse. Now it is $220 for the Barbie Dreamhouse. Used to be well under $200. What about home and do-it-yourself stuff? A GE top freezer refrigerator, $52 up. Now $648. DeWalt Max Power Drill, now $169. That's up $25. A 6-drawer dresser from IKEA, up $25. Auto parts and vehicles, Michelin Defender tires, up $68. Ford Bronco Sport Base, the 2025 Ford Bronco Sport Base, up $1,800. And the Bosch Spark Plug 4-pack, something as small as that, now up to $6 from $4. Scott Bessent, who is our U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, he's been peppered with questions about this recently. Here he is talking about Ford's quarterly loss. That's right. A giant U.S. megacore showed a loss. What did he have to say about that?
Mr. Secretary, I have a real specific question to ask you about some of the unintended maybe consequences of tariffs. Ford hasn't lost money in a quarter since 2023. They make almost all their cars here. Now they're doing, I think they're trying the best they can to have U.S.-made vehicles, but they still import some parts. As a result, $800 million in tariffs pushed them into wiped out the profit entirely. Are there still carve-outs available? If a company like Ford comes to you and says, look, this is how this affected us, or comes to the president, this is a direct consequence of what's happening, that's not what was intended with the tariffs, was it? And it's not what we want, I don't think, to cause Ford to report a loss, even though they're trying their best to make all their cars here.
Yeah, and look, I admire, Joe, I admire Ford. Ford, I believe, has the highest U.S. production of any auto manufacturer. I think that there were numerous circumstances with Ford. I believe that the Ford F-150, 250 their big truck series is made out of aluminum instead of steel, which is different than other cars. So I think maybe the aluminum tariffs have hit them harder. We will be negotiating with Canada on those. So, I think with Ford, it's probably been idiosyncratic.
Man, he is mealy-mouthed. I don't like listening to him. Set aside what he's actually saying. I don't like listening to him. And by the way, that was Joe Kernan lobbing him in as soft a softball as he possibly can with something so damning like yeah. Right? He's talking about a loss from Ford, and he's trying to make it as palatable for Scott to answer this as possible. And he still comes out hemming and hawing, mealy mouth. And he's talking about, they use aluminum instead of steel. So their problem is idiosyncratic. That means it's unique to them. This problem is unique to Ford. No. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how many people experience similar problems in the face of these tariffs. It's not going to be idiosyncratic to Ford, Mr. Besant. Promise you. I mean, he's basically saying, change your business model. Change your entire business model, or maybe you'll take a loss. Sorry. Prices are going to skyrocket. They already are. And the only fortunate part about that is that the MAGA base will feel it. They will feel it. They will recognize the fraud in their own rhetoric if they try to defend this. As their prices go through the roof and they have a hard time sending their kids back to school or buying things around the home or groceries, they'll feel it.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because silence isn't an option.
The FCC approved Skydance Media's $8 billion bid to acquire CBS News parent company Paramount. The green light from Trump's FCC comes after Paramount agreed to a $16 million settlement over a lawsuit brought by the president. So as we said, this deal comes on the heels of Paramount paying $16 million to settle a lawsuit brought by President Trump, prompting accusations that the company essentially paid for merger approval based on your reporting. What's the deal? Was this a payoff dressed up as a settlement?
Well, look, it certainly seems that way. I mean, and all available evidence suggests that the answer is yes. And I would say in the business community, certainly in the media community right now, there's quite a bit of anxiety about a sort of pay-for-play regulatory environment, in which case, if you need any deal to get done, any merger, any acquisition, you might be forced to cough up the number seems to be, whether it's Disney or Paramount, the number seems to be $16 million to the Trump presidential library.
All right, we're switching gears, and it is absolutely my pleasure to be highlighting this story because it is unfortunately flying a little under the radar, which really surprises me considering the large media presence of the entities involved in this story. Talking about Stephen Colbert, CBS, Paramount, right? These are big names, and a story like this, I feel like, should have been more at the forefront, but it's getting pushed down. And there's elements of this that are existentially disturbing because this story is highlighting one of Trump's main philosophical agendas in terms of dismantling our current democracy and, what it is to be a part of the media in this country, what it is to be, an immigrant in this country. All these aspects, these overarching aspects that are threatened, this is a big step in it. Okay, this is a big step in the direction Trump wants to see this country go. And I'm being overarching and a little dramatic. It seems like just a story about a merger, right? And what is this merger? Before I really kind of chop this up. What is this merger? Okay, it's between Paramount and Skydance. On July 7th, Skydance Media reached a definitive agreement to merge with Paramount Global in a transaction valued at approximately $8 billion, forming a new public entity, Paramount Skydance Corporation, whose overall value, once this is complete, will be around $28 billion. Okay? Now, this merger had been blocked. It had been blocked. Then the $16 million lawsuit comes around, right? Trump administration sued CBS Paramount for $16 million concerning over the Kamala Harris interview on 60 Minutes being edited. And then all of a sudden, Paramount just folds. Not only do they pay the money, but they fire Stephen Colbert, an outspoken, pretty funny dude who, let's just say, has not been complimentary of the Trump administration. Okay, he is one of the more outspoken comedians and talk show hosts who've spoken out against this administration, and he's done it just as frequently as anybody else has. And so he was targeted in this as well. He got swept up in this because once they fired Colbert and paid the money, on July 24th, just like that, the FCC approved the merger. Who approved this merger? Who approved this merger? Well, here's the part that should worry you. The current FCC chairman is a man named Brendan Carr. He used to be the FCC commissioner. Okay? Since August 2017, he was the FCC commissioner. In January, he was promoted to chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. Okay? And he has been championing deregulation, supports curbing big tech moderation, and opposes TikTok, of all things, for national security reasons. Okay? He's revived media oversight cases targeting alleged political bias, means he's greenlit going after any adversarial media outlets for coming after this administration. Political bias. He's opening cases. He's going after free media, free press. Okay? Now, he is a conservative Republican, as you might have figured. He advocates for deregulation, opposes net neutrality, of course he does, but most importantly, he challenges Section 230, protections on social media platform. Section 230 of the Communications Act of 1934 provides key legal protections for online platforms. In short, this gives platforms immunity from most lawsuits over content posted by their users and lets them moderate content without fear of liability so long as they act in good faith. He's coming after that. He wants platforms, social media platforms, to be held responsible for anything any user says on their platform. That's a double-edged sword. You better be careful, Brendan Carr. You better be careful. Because some wild crap is said on Truth Social, among other places. This could cut both ways. He needs to be careful. But here's the rub. Ethics officials within the government okayed this guy, Brendan Carr, to write chapters in you-know-what, Project 2025, the Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, Project 2025. This guy wrote the chapter on the FCC for Project 2025. It is his job to go after opposition media and silence and stifle free speech. It is his job to crap on the First Amendment and our Constitution from on high, real high. And his crusade has begun. It has begun. And he's doing it with this giant quid pro quo right in our face. And some people are sniffing it out a little bit. Some people had questions for Brendan Carr. You want to hear from this guy? You kind of don't. Trust me, he's the worst. But we're going to hear from him.
Your approval here has been under the microscope in the sense that, and we've talked about it, Sarah's asked you about it, I've asked you about it previously, the idea that there was a quid pro quo essentially between the FCC and the Trump administration in terms of you're allowing this deal to go forward only after they settled with the Trump administration and some of their some of the moves they had made to obviously say that they had done things incorrectly in terms of the use of interviews and the like. She wrote, the once independent FCC used its vast power to pressure Paramount to broker a private legal settlement and further erode press freedom. The agency's undermining legitimate efforts to combat discrimination and expand opportunity by overstepping its authority. And she says, after months of cowardly capitulation to this administration. What's your response to that?
No, listen, if you step back, what's happening here is, I think President Trump is fundamentally reshaping the media landscape. And the way he's doing that is when he ran for election, he ran directly at these legacy broadcast media outlets, ABC, NBC, CBS. For years, government officials just allowed those entities with execs sitting in Hollywood and New York to dictate the political narrative. And he has fundamentally changed the game. And you see that really having consequences that are just rushing all through media.
So, Brendan Carr, what's your answer to people who are saying that it was quid pro quo, right? The $16 million settlement and firing Colbert to get this merger through. His answer is propaganda. Trump. America. And he talks about we had to go after the legacy media, CBS, NBC, ABC. Notice he didn't talk about the adversarial political media outlets like Fox, Newsmax, OAN, right? News Nation. He didn't talk about going after them. He's not worried about their politically adversarial nature, right? He's not worried about them. He's going after the ones that tell the truth. For the most part, NBC, ABC, CBS, the biggest dogs on the block, the ones that have not previously bent the knee sufficiently, the ones that have the biggest reach and the biggest impact on your life, the places you like to go for free, fair, and balanced news. We got to go after them first. So what's your answer to this quid pro quo accusation? America. He continues.
Yeah, and so, again, when Ana Gomez writes, you're imposing never-before-seen controls over newsroom decisions and editorial judgment in direct violation of the First Amendment, you say what?
I think it's time for a change. And the procedures that we put in place in this deal have lots of precedent. For instance, there's been ombudsmans put in place by the FCC before. We're putting a biased ombudsman in place here. We're addressing DEI. The prior FCC during the Biden years put pro-DEI commitments in different transactions. And so we're unwinding that type of approach.
This guy. Hey, it's time for a change. And that change is a middle finger to the First Amendment. That change is a middle finger to autonomous media outlets doing what they want when they want under the First Amendment. He's talking about the changes that were implemented at CBS, at Paramount, okay, the changes that were implemented, and he has made changes. A minimum 2-year ombudsman for CBS editorial oversight. That means our guy standing over the shoulder of CBS's editors saying, nope, yes, nope, yep, you can't run with that, you better run with that. He forced a commitment out of CBS to broad political and ideological diversity. Translation, stop telling the truth. Start telling our truth a little bit more. You need to get more broad and diversified in terms of what's the truth and what's not the truth. That's what they're talking about. You need to be a little more open to telling our side of the story. The bullcrap, the spin, the propaganda. Not enough of that on your airwaves, CBS. We need to diversify just a little bit. That's what he's talking about. And by the way, Skydance has committed itself to eliminating existing DEI policies at Paramount to align with FCC regulations. Of course he did. Of course the author of 2020, one of the authors of Project 2025 is going to find a way to crowbar an attack on DEI in the midst of all this. Because you got to stay on brand, don't you? You got to stay right on messaging. The problem with CBS before, the problem Paramount used to have, all this DEI. That's the problem. We're going to take care of that for you. We're going to take care of that for you. I don't know if some of you took my advice and went and saw that South Park episode. I wonder if they're going to address that. I honestly wonder what's going to happen with the rest of this season. The next episode's supposed to be like equally as inflammatory as this one was, and it's going to be next week. I really do fear for the future of South Park and their ability to provide us with the most poignant, hilarious satire we have ever seen on TV. Charlie Kirk is going to be the target of the next one. I can't wait. Cartman as Charlie Kirk is the crux of the next episode. I can't wait. Cannot wait. CBS, Paramount, MTV, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, BET, Pluto TV, and many other outlets are all under this new merger. I hope you have no problem with all of these media entities getting DEI out of their policies and having all of their editorial decisions being made for them by a ombudsman. Some stuff's going to change around here. Mr. Brendan Carr is going to see to it.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
All right, we're switching gears a little bit. I hope that story about Brendan Carr and that merger profoundly disturbs you. And I need you to get good with it. This is the fruition of Project 2025. We have been pointing to it as it comes to fruition. It was conjecture. It was speculation for so long. We could only speculate as to what was going to happen, what it was going to look like. We couldn't believe our ears when we heard the details of it, and now we are seeing it in action. And I hope it disturbs you, and I need you to stay appraised to it. Other things that are going on. Now, I have talked about how just fundamentally wrong it is for Texas officials to be holding the 30-day special session about the flooding and then start that session with redistricting. We've talked about that. And the flooding, the victims, their families, answers, all of it, solutions, all of it has been pushed to the back burner. But discussions are happening. Maybe not at their capital. Not yet. We got important redistricting to get to, but it's happening on a local level. Some people are kind of being held responsible. Their feet are being held to the fire a little bit in Texas. There was one meeting, particularly we've got some footage from, and I think this is something you may have wanted to see, or at least wanted answers on, or somebody to say something about the failures at the local level. So in Kerr County, there was a meeting, okay? Kerrville, Texas, on Thursday. They had a meeting, and some of these officials were brought up to talk about what happened, their role in it. They were questioned about their preparedness. They were questioned about the response time. Victims' families shared emotional testimony, okay? Lawmakers are in the process of drafting bills to prevent this in the future, but right now, we want people to be held accountable. Let's take a look at some of this.
Nobody came for us. Nobody. In a room packed with heartache. My daughter was not identified until Thursday the 10th. And the only thing that identified her at all was her charm bracelet. Kerrville and Kerr County officials defended their response to the deadly flooding on July 4th.
We have nothing to hide, and we ask for patience as we work through this process responsibly and thoroughly.
Emergency Coordinator William Thomas, who previously refused to answer questions in public, said he had taken the day off and was home sick and asleep, awakened at 5:30 a.m., hours after the Guadalupe River became a torrent of tragedy.
There was no visible flooding on my drive into the office, but it quickly became clear that the situation was escalating.
Meanwhile, County Judge Rob Kelly said he was at a lake house in another county, and Sheriff Larry Letha said he was sleeping as the storm raged and lives were lost. Lawmakers shocked.
The three guys in Kerr County who were responsible for sounding the alarm were effectively unavailable. Am I hearing that right?
Okay, so the three guys they're talking about they are Kirk County Sheriff Larry Latha. You just heard about him. He said he got the first call at 4:20, began calling people to get out of bed and get to the field to rescue people, and he arrived at the sheriff's office at 5 a.m. on July 4th. That's what he said. Another one that was under fire, another one of these gentlemen, Kirk County's emergency management coordinator, William Thomas. William Thomas said he planned to be off for a family vacation, but he actually stayed home sick. He was awakened at 5:30 by his wife and got out and mobilized as quick as he could. That's what he says. And Kirk County Judge Rob Kelly, he said he was sleeping when he got the texts. He was even later. And some say he wasn't there at all day. There's conflicting reports about whether the judge he got there at all. And so we're going to hear from him because Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, he got a piece of his hide. He wanted to talk to him about it.
And finally, the Lieutenant Governor today had it and went after him. Take a listen to that.
Governor Youngkin was here. I was here. The mayor was here. Everyone was here.
Then I wasn't. Then I wasn't.
And you were not. You were not. And I asked the question, where's the county judge? I have covered multiple emergencies in my 10 years as lieutenant governor. This is about as bad of a day as you can have, and I've had a lot of bad days. Because we didn't just lose people, we didn't know where people were. And you weren't here. I asked where you were for the press conference that night. You weren't here. I don't know where you were on day one on July 4th, but you should have been here. You should have been here directing that response. That's your responsibility.
Okay, so it's on people's radar. It's something they care about. And even if the state Senate isn't going to pick it up as quickly as they should in this 30-day session, at the local level, they are holding people's feet to the fire. Laws are being enacted. They're being drawn up now to prevent this in the future, and this is an ongoing thing in Texas. It's going to continue to progress. What's really sad about this, in my eyes, is that Kristi Noem, when asked about cuts to FEMA, the one point Kristi Noem kept circling back to was, we need to be able to lean on local authorities in these matters. It can't be an overarching multi-system of different stops along the way to getting response. We have to get local, a local infrastructure, a local structure in place to take care of it at the local level. We can't have failures like this, and it can't be the government's job. But this is the local level having failed you and being held responsible.
And hey, Brett, I'm concerned that they at the federal side will end up using this to skirt blame on their end as well by just see, look at the local, they messed up, we're good. That's one of the concerns, that they try to use them as the blame, just to take the blame, to take the fall.
Yes.
For their shortcomings.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, absolutely, they'll point to it. They did in the face of the tragedy. They said the Weather Service didn't drop the ball. Right? They immediately got out and attacked the local level. And now these meetings, these local officials being held to the fire so publicly, it definitely backs up their claims and gives them kind of, an out on responsibility. And so, that's just disheartening. And it especially has to be disheartening to people who actually lost loved ones, lost property, lost their lives and their livelihood in this. And nobody wants to say this is where it failed. Nobody can just say this is where it failed. And your government is saying it wasn't us. It wasn't us. And by the way, the implements we have in place, we're going to cut back on them. So those people that failed you at the local level, we're going to lean on them some more. Disheartening, to say the least. Okay. On to something a little lighter. I wanted to end the week on something a little lighter because we all love laughing at Donald. It's easy. He makes it easy for us, and hasn't got old for me yet. I like to laugh at Donald when he's being particularly silly and stupid and just kind of fumbling an old man with failing faculties, and it's on display for the whole world. Although it is very depressing and upsetting, it's also hilarious sometimes. And we're going to bring a little something. Now, he brought back by executive order the presidential fitness test. You remember that? The presidential fitness test? And he held a little meeting in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. In attendance was Bryson DeChambeau, Annex Sorestam, Harrison Butker, Mr. Women Should Be in the Kitchen, Harrison Butker, Lawrence Taylor, and Paul Triple H Levesque. They were there. They were there. We could get into details about the fitness test, but just know that, supporters praise this as a boost to national youth health, encouraging competition, blah, blah, blah. Some critics, and I don't know, it doesn't hold a ton of water, but some critics warn possible downsides could be body shaming, psychological stress, and a return to less inclusive standards. Okay, you guys can argue about that. I personally don't care enough. Some of the key leaders in this are DeChambeau, Nick Bosa, Saquon Barkley, Tua Tagovailoa. You paying attention, Don? Tua Tagovailoa. Just wanted to get that clear how to pronounce that real quick. Other members, Jack Nicklaus, Wayne Gretzky, Mariano Rivera, Tony Romo, so that ensures that the presidential fitness test will never win a playoff game, and Roger Goodell. Okay, so we got the presidential fitness test is back, and Trump wants to make a big spectacle out of it. Let's get into Trump at this little test.
14-time WWE world champion, and he's a man who you're not going to mess around with. Even Bryson said, I think I'll take a pass on him, right?
So he's looking at Triple H.
He's another one who's been my friend for a long time.
Oh, he's been your friend.
Really an amazing athlete, Triple H.
Triple H. Where is
Triple
he?
H.
Where's my friend for a long time?
There
He's
he is.
standing right next to me.
Oh, that's still very strong. He's a strong guy. And it's great to have you. And you felt very strongly about this, about the council.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. My close friend for a very long time. I can't recognize him right now. Oh, there he is, standing 1 foot away from me. Nice arms. Yeah. Of all the people to lose track of, the 250-pound solid muscle 6'3" Triple H standing right next to you that you've been friends with for a very long time. His mind is failing him. How unprepared. Either your mind is completely failing you and you don't recognize your close friend, or you were that unprepared that you had no idea who Triple H was.
Can't wait to read the book from Jake Tapper.
Oh, Jake? Look, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, Scotty. Don't send me down a rabbit hole. But, Jake, you were so willing to write this book about Biden's failing faculties. I hope you're paying attention, Jake. I hope your sequel book on Biden is in the works right now, because that was extraordinary. Yeah, either you don't recognize your close, longtime friend when he's standing, almost sitting on your lap, or you are that unprepared to stand here and introduce this guy. It continues.
And Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback, who is really he's been fantastic. He's been when he's not injured, he's great. He's got to stay healthy, but he's a great guy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to keep it moving. But the only note he had on this guy was he gets injured a lot. That's the only helper he had there. He looked down, can't pronounce the name, and I've heard Tua's name get butchered. Never like that. That was an extraordinarily egregious butchering of this guy's name. But yeah, the only note he had on him is he gets injured. Okay, fine. Who else you want to introduce to us, Trump?
You want to say a few words? Come on up. Come on.
Come on.
He's
Come on.
Shy, but
come
once
on.
he gets going, nobody can stop.
Oh, no, that don't stop. I'm just proud to be on this team. I don't know why.
Oh.
I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. Oh. But I'm here to serve.
Okay.
I'm here to serve you. Okay, so I'm gonna do the best I can for as long as I can. Thank you very much.
Okay, Lawrence, Uncle Tom. You're so happy to be standing there. You're so happy to be standing there not knowing what the hell you're doing. And what is it with the Republicans and putting people who have hurt children in a position to affect children's lives? We talked about Linda McMahon at the head of the Department of Education coming off the heels of this giant sex scandal where underage kids were abused under her watch again and again and again. Now we've got LT standing here who's going to be directly dealing with the health of children, directly dealing with children. Meanwhile, oh yeah, he's been arrested. Statutory rape and prostitution, underage sex with a 16-year-old after a $300 payment to her pimp. Drugs, possession, paraphernalia, tax evasion, leaving the scene of an accident, DUI, violating his sex offender registry. Great pick. Why am I so comfortable taking shots at LT? Because I'm a Bears fan. Bleep the Giants. He ain't my greatest defensive player ever. That's Michael Singletary. Get out of here, LT.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett breaks. Things will be back Monday to break it all down.